Hello, my friends. Hello, it's Matthew Street, and welcome to my station or channel, whatever you want to call it. And as always, I truly appreciate you being here. And folks, it's back after several weeks. Finally, my Millennial and my Generation Z came through again, folks, for another episode of Paul McCartney, The Truth. Yes, folks. Now, if you're wondering what this show is all about, I'm not going to explain it again. I did it in like the first 3 episodes. Basically, it's taking a baby boomer, a millennial, and a Generation Z, 3 different generations, and we give our take on various Paul McCartney albums. Now, this series is blowing me away because the millennial and the Generation Z are surprising the heck out of me. I'll throw an album their way that I think they're going to absolutely like because it's maybe modern sounding and fresh, like Egypt Station, and they both did not like Egypt Station. And then I throw an album at them like, oh, they're going to like this. This goes back to Paul's 1970s, heyday back then. And I throw them London Town, and they don't like London Town either. I think they're going to love it, and they don't. And then I throw them an album I think they're going to absolutely hate, like Press to Play. I throw that their way, and they both like it. Go figure, right? And it's just very difficult, folks. So anyway, I can't figure it out. I'm not going to try to figure it out anymore. So this episode is Memory Almost Full. Yes, indeed, folks. We're doing Memory Almost Full. And there's my little bonus big CD set I have here. This is a great set, by the way, because you get the CD and you get all kinds of cool stuff. And it flips around and Paul dances and sings and does all kinds of funny stuff, and there it is, the 2 disc. It's absolutely wonderful little set, and as I said, you get not only the album, but you get some bonus tracks too there at the bottom. I'll hold that so you can see that, and there's the tracks of them. Okay, so let's get the episode rolling without further ado, and we'll start with me, the baby boomer. Now, I'm just going to say right off the top, this is one of my most favorite later period Paul McCartney albums ever. Now, I wasn't a big fan of Driving Rain in 2002. And then he came out in 2005 with Chaos and Creation in the Backyard, and I love that album. I love the vibe of it, the mood, how Paul opened himself up on that album. It's just great songwriting and everything. Love Chaos. But then only 2 years later, we hear he's coming out with another album. Now, that's like old school Paul back in the day when he would release albums all the time. So I was like, oh my God, is this just leftover tracks? What is this new album coming out? Well, Memory Almost Full was dropped in the United States on June 5th, 2007. It was on the MPL label, Paul's label, but it was also attached to a Starbucks, the coffee place, Starbucks Here music label. So this was something different for Paul in the whole promotional aspect, and the album was featured at Starbucks with displays, and you could get the album if you bought a mocha or a cappuccino, you got a free copy. I'm making that up. I don't know. Anyway, the LP went over very well with people, in my opinion, folks. Now, chart-wise, did it? Well, it was nominated for a Grammy. It was Grammy nominated. It did sell over 2 million copies, and it did go gold in the United States with over 500,000 copies. So, chart-wise, I believe it made number 3, with the new system where it goes by immediate sales and streams or whatever. It did make number 3, so that's good. I mean, a top 10, top 5 album for Paul McCartney is good. So I consider it a success. I really do. I think it was a great album and did very well. Now, David Kahn, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Someone will probably correct me and say, no, it's Kane or something, or Kane or whatever. David Kahn produced the album, as far as I'm concerned. There were 3 singles from it, 2 standard singles. Ever Present Past came out on April 20th of 2007. And in the United States, it was released on May 15th here. It made only number 93 on the pop charts. And that's a travesty because it's a great song. Number 27 on the adult contemporary charts. The video for it is absolutely fantastic. The first 2 singles from this album, the videos are great. 2 thumbs up. Check out the 2 videos for Ever Present Past and the second single, which was Dance Tonight. Great video for Dance Tonight. That was released on June 18th. It only made number 69 in Billboard, though. Didn't even make the top 40. And I'm sorry, Ever Present Past and Dance Tonight are two wonderful pop songs. They should have made higher on the charts, well up into the top 20 or higher, in my humble opinion. Now, Dance Tonight was nominated for a Pop Male Vocal Performance Grammy. He didn't win, but it was nominated at the '08 Grammy. So kudos to Paul for that. Now, the final single is a song I despise. It's called Nod Your Head. It didn't get a standard single release. It was just released as a free on iTunes, I guess, as a single. And it's horrible. I don't like that song at all. It's the last song on the album, and I wish they just never put it on the album. Just my humble opinion. Now, the songs I love from this, well, first let me say about the album, I loved it from day one. When this came out, whereas Chaos and Creation kind of had a Beatlesque vibe with him open, the lyrics were so great and the songs were moody and catchy and wonderful. I would say this is more like a Paul McCartney 1970s vibe, but modern sounding. You know what I mean? Like it's got a Wings vibe to it, that poppy Wings vibe to it. I've always felt that about this album. It's melodic, it's fun. To me, it's a return to form for Paul McCartney, to writing great, excellent, catchy pop songs. And I return to this album a lot. I listen to it a lot as a baby boomer. I love it, love it, love it. It's one of my favorite later period Paul albums, as I said. Songs I love on it are almost the whole thing, folks. I love Dance Tonight. I love Ever Present Past. I like See Your Sunshine. I like Only Mama Knows, great rocker. You Tell Me is great. Mr. Bellamy is quirky, but great. Vintage Clothes, great pop song. That Was Me, great, cool, modern pop song. Feet in the Clouds is dreamy, and I love it. House of Wax, what a great rock and roll song for Paul and his voice at age 65 on House of Wax. You listen to House of Wax, and that will tell you he still had the voice back then in around the 2005, 2007 era. Paul still had it, because listen to House of Wax. 65-year-old man belting that out. Great, great rock song. And End of the End, where Paul gets reflective as he's getting older, reflecting on what will happen when I pass from this life and move on to the next. What will happen? You know, what will people say about me and how I want them to react to my passing? Very great angle for Paul to come in on with a song and writing a song, and very mature and just a great, great, wonderful song. There's two songs on this album I really don't care for. There's only two, and I already told you about the first one. It's the last one. You know, the album should have ended with End of the End. That's where the album should have ended, on that great note. Instead, we get Nod Your Head, which sucks. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. It's a sucky Paul song. It doesn't deserve to be on this album with these other great pop songs. It's terrible. It could be a B-side somewhere or a bonus cut, just, you know, on some future release, but Nod Your Head should not be on the official album. It's terrible. I don't like it. And the other song that's like kind of meh for me is Gratitude. Doesn't go anywhere for me. Doesn't do anything. I don't really care for Gratitude. But I do like some of the bonus cuts on here. There's one I particularly like. Why So Blue is a good little bonus cut to have. So I love this album. It's great for me. And now, as we change from the Matt Street glasses to my old man reading glasses, which I probably stole from Mrs. Street because I don't have my own reading glasses, so I just take whatever's lying around the house. I have my Millennial and my Generation Z's take on Memory Almost Full. You ready? So who shall we start with? Okay, we'll start with our Millennial. This is his report. This was a great listen. I played it twice in a row. Just wanted to hear it again. Dance Tonight is a sentimental favorite of mine. Paul played this the first time I saw him live, and the whole stadium was clapping and stomping their feet. Very powerful memory. Ever Present Past has a nice groove, solid melody, especially the chorus. Gets you nodding your head. The guitar cuts hard and echoes coolly in the background. Great track. See Your Sunshine, cheerful pop song. The kind of song you play with the windows down when you're in love and don't have a care in the world. Not a masterpiece, but not bad at all. Only Mama Knows. This song rocks. Dark, but uplifting with its attitude and power. Driving guitar and Paul's vocals have a nice bite to them. Drums are simple, but are a highlight of the track for me. You Tell Me, melancholy, with just a hint of resentment. Has a bit of Hotel California vibe. I like the haunting background vocals. Mr. Bellamy, maybe my favorite on the album. The song sounds a bit like the Kinks if they were influenced by hip hop. I mean that in a good way. The vibe is unmistakably British, and the cool factor is high. Gratitude, not my favorite on the album. Has a lot of interesting sounds, but not something I can get into. Vintage Clothes, such a good pop tune. Catchy as hell. I just wish he didn't do the jazz fusion thing with the chorus. It's interesting, but also feels like Paul overthought that a bit. Just roll with the sounds you have. It's a great little song. That Was Me. Love how Vintage Clothes rolls right into this one. Toe-tapping country bluesy sound. Undeniably modern with shades of early Elvis and Carl Perkins. Another very enjoyable track. Feet in the Clouds. Solid. Doing what he does best. A pretty, well-crafted pop song. House of Wax. This kind of tune isn't what I think of when I think of Paul. It's very dark and ominous, but he seems to pull it off. It also has its uplifting points, which feel more consistent with who he is as an artist. The End of the End. Nice little piano ballad. What's not to like? Paul's voice sounds great here. So crisp. Would have been a great closer to the album if not for... Nod your head. Kinda hated this. Not because of the song. It just seems so out of place. Leave it off the album. He didn't need it. I really dug this record overall. So far, I've listened to it 3 times. My favorite so far in this series, Paul McCartney, The Truth. Since my counterpart, the Gen Z guy, is giving his rankings, I might as well too. Right now, for my Millennial, his number 1, Memory Almost Full, Press to Play, London Town, Egypt Station. Well, there you go, folks. That was a great, great review from my Millennial. Let's go to Generation Z. Generation Z's thoughts on Memory Almost Full. This is the Paul album I was waiting for throughout this process. I think people make the mistake of expecting the Beatles Part 2 with Paul's solo work. This album just highlights what Paul did best and what he contributed to the Beatles' sound. It's fun, it's hooky, has some classic and modern elements, interesting instrumentation, and great lyrical content. I've already heard Dance Tonight, and I've always been a little meh on that track, but I totally get why it was the single. Listening to it in the context of the whole album certainly helped its stock. Ever Present Past is really what pulled me into this album. First off, it has the biggest earworm on the album for me with the things I think I did. Oh, the things I think I did when I was a kid section. It ticks all the boxes for the hook, and I found myself randomly singing that bit even days after I listened to the album. See Your Sunshine was a great listen, and where I started to hear those modern, for the time, elements. However, the bridge took me right back to Beatle land a bit. The transitions between the new and old are seamless. A great transition track for sure, which leads nicely into one of my favorites on the album. I've seen Paul live and heard him play this song before, so I was pretty surprised when it came from this album, as I was just assumed it was one of his earlier hits from the 70s. So I'm thinking he must have meant Only Mama Knows, because he didn't say it out loud here. So he must mean Only Mama Knows on that high praise. After I listened to the hits from the 70s. Yeah, it must be Only Mama Knows, although he doesn't say it. We get a nice breather after Only Mama Knows with You Tell Me, which was needed after such a rocker with Only Mama Knows. Okay, mentions it here. If I'm honest, it didn't really do much for me, You Tell Me. It's not a bad tune, but it just doesn't stand out among so many other stronger tracks. Mr. Bellamy was probably one of the biggest surprises on the album for me. It starts off with a bit of a hip-hop R&B piano that pulled me in. The relaxed Mr. Bellamy bits are classic, weird, playful Paul, but done in the correct way. Parentheses, see my previous reviews for how he does it wrong. Ha ha. Gratitude was a solid track, but a little vanilla for me. Nothing stood out to make it memorable for me. I'd have to give it a positive. If I have to give it a positive mark, I would say the bridge is strong. Vintage Clothes was a nice little gem to find deeper into the album. Again, I can definitely hear some modern elements sneaking into this track. I hear a little MGMT in this track, although I don't think their debut album was out yet when Paul recorded this. But it has that indie pop vibe to it. Similar to the one track on London Town, I hear That Was Me doing another nod to the rockabilly Paul loved when he was young. Feet in the Clouds is another nice transition track, no more, no less. I really like how Paul's voice sounds on House of Wax. The reverb, delay they put on it is great and makes him sound quite powerful. And the guitar solo is searing. Again, a nice buried gem late in the album. And Paul couldn't help himself, could he? He had The End of the End, a little on the nose, but a lovely little album closer. But nope, nod your head snuck onto this album. I want those 2 minutes of my life back. For the few negative marks it has for me, I absolutely love this album and have been listening to it on a fairly regular rotation since Matt asked me for my review. I hear all of the things that made me love Paul's music in the first place, but there are all these little early 2000s indie rock elements sneaking in, a la the era of a fave era of his. I'm sorry. But even with the modern elements, the overall production sound doesn't sound dated at all. It could come out today and people would still love it. So my current rankings for Gen Z are number 1 album, Memory Almost Full. Press to Play, London Town, Egypt Station, same as my Millennial. And there you have it, folks, from your baby boomer, Matthew Street, a Millennial, and a Generation Z, what they think of Memory Almost Full. And I think that was quite outstanding in my humble opinion. Stay tuned. Next episode, Venus and Mars are all right tonight. Bye.